A new Wordle puzzle is online. Click on the link to play.
Listening to the following video may give you clues. Please like and share the videos.
Young Nurses Indaba Trade Union pickets on International Nurses Day. A new march planned by the Young Nurses Indaba Trade Union on International Nurses Day will target the National Department of Health, the South African Nurses Council, and the Department of Health in Gauteng.
The union has declared May their month of action and has already demonstrated outside their local Department of Health in March. They hope to improve conditions and benefits for employees.
The strike has already made the working conditions of long-time unionized nurses much worse. Long-time unionized nurses lose jobs.
In a bid to save their jobs, young nurses in the United Kingdom are joining the ranks of trade unions. On International Nurses Day, they plan to picket at their place of employment to demand better working conditions and higher pay.
The British government, however, is promoting divisions between nurses' unions. On the other hand, the Labour movement and the British Medical Journal have voiced their support for the nurses' cause.
The nurses' struggle in Britain reflects the issues faced by nurses worldwide. Unemployment, poor pay, and low satisfaction with working conditions have contributed to the nurses' militancy.
At the same time, many nurses are ambivalent about the principles of collective bargaining. This article addresses these issues and stresses the need for creative solutions.
The US Department of Labor has urged hospitals to recognize the union and offer more job security.
A recent study by the National Labor Relations Board has shown that unionization is linked with improved quality of care. In fact, it is the only way to get higher wages.
The NLRB has endorsed the union's demands for better working conditions. However, despite the US
government's efforts, unionization will remain the way to protect healthcare workers' rights. The United States and Canada's healthcare system is suffering from a nursing shortage.
The National Union of Nurses has reported a 78% increase in average weekly overtime during the pandemic, and 24-hour nursing shifts are the norm in many regions. 1/3 of nurses are considering leaving their jobs within a year.
Various unions have made demands to improve the healthcare system, including higher staffing levels and more federal funding. New organizing campaigns are taking place in companies that are not traditionally unionized.
The majority of these campaigns have been small-scale, while the main state Nurses Association campaign could be a catalyst for a national organizing effort. This new movement could take the labor debate to a new level.
But, as labor historian Chuck Slobum points out, unions have seen their ups and downs over the past century. And while the unions have faced many ups and downs, they have also seen government-sanctioned violence.
On-time unionized nurses are overworked. Unionized nurses across the country are preparing to strike in response to proposed healthcare cuts.
A new RN superunion has emerged and is gaining steam in the healthcare industry. The union's blog posts have discussed the reformation of healthcare and nursing practices.
Here are some thoughts. A nurse might have a right to strike if she feels overworked.
A nurse could also strike when she is working in a poorly equipped unit. In a study, Assistant Professor Karen Lassater of the University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing discovered that nursing staffs at Community First Hospital were understaffed.
More than half reported high levels of burnout, and 1/4 nurses planned to quit their jobs because of these conditions. This issue should be taken seriously, especially in light of recent news reports about the shortage of IV fluid.
But there are still ways to improve working conditions. Staffing challenges are common in critical care units, where nurses are forced to work through their breaks.
The union will take these concerns to management. Staffing issues are not limited to the critical care units, though.
HPAE nurse Kathy Rosen says that she has heard of nurses caring for 7 patients in general medical surgical wards. That's a huge problem, since patients are more complicated than they used to be.
Another important issue is the shortage of nurses. Hospitals that are unionized have lower nurse-to-patient ratios.
In addition, nurses have better healthcare quality. The nurses' union may help solve the statewide nursing shortage.
But how does unionization improve working conditions? One way to find out is to examine the unions of nurses at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. Overworked nurses are increasingly relying on each other for support.
Many are also risking burnout. Ann Boutelier, a registered nurse at Dartmouth General Hospital in New Hampshire, says she has been approved for some vacation time this summer, but doesn't know who will cover her shifts.
She is unsure of how to get back on track in time to see her kids. Striking nurses find other work.
The first International Nurses' Day was celebrated in 1820 and now has a higher meaning as we fight a deadly coronavirus pandemic. Nurses are the backbone of any hospital.
They give quality care to patients without any rest. The importance of this profession cannot be underestimated.
But what can be done to celebrate this day? What should be done to acknowledge the contribution of nurses in their communities? The role of nurses in the region of the Americas is important, not only because of the number of jobs they perform, but also because of their size, experience and outreach to minority groups and vulnerable populations.
The challenges faced by nurses in this region include low pay, unsafe working conditions, inadequate staffing, and ongoing migration. However, despite the challenges nurses face, their sacrifices are rewarded.
On International Nurses' Day, we pay homage to nurses around the world, and take a look at some of the biggest stories that put them in the spotlight last year. The strike at UC has prompted the Public Employment Relations Board to intervene.
The union and management are currently in contract negotiations, and the strike is illegal. But if the strike goes through, it will only hurt the workers who are on the job.
But striking young nurses may find other employment, which means more pay for the hospital. Striking young nurses find other jobs on International Nurses' Day.
In the UK, the RCN has launched a campaign to improve the safety of the health system. Meanwhile, in the Republic of Ireland, tens of thousands of nurses have gone on a one-day walkout.
The Irish Nurses and Midwives Organisation claims that low wages have triggered the safe staffing crisis in the country's health system. Meanwhile, nurses in New Zealand went on a 24-hour strike last year, which led to a 12.5% pay rise.
The government subsequently reached an agreement. Striking nurses are exhausted.
The striking nurses at the University of Chicago Medical Center are attempting to end their workweek by going on strike for 5 days. They are part of the NNU union and have a list of demands that they feel are not being met.
During their strike, 2,200 nurses will sit out of work. According to the unionized nurses, the hospital has too many patients and too little staff.
The ratio of nurses to patients should be no more than 4. The strike is also having a detrimental impact on the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine.
The Lakes District Health Board said the strike had forced the closure of its immunization hubs. The district health boards have hired 3,000 more nurses over the last 3 years.
Meanwhile, they have enacted measures to improve staff health. Nursing staff have also been exhausted by the strike.
Striking nurses are exhausted on International Nurses' Day. A shortage of nurses has worsened during the COVID pandemic.
Previously, nurses worked 5 days a week in the emergency room. Now, they work 3 or 4 days a week.
Their 8-hour shifts often stretch out to 10 hours. Patients must wait longer for treatment.
Despite the shortage of nurses, many nurses have expressed satisfaction in their jobs. International Nurses' Day is a time to honor the nurses who make our healthcare system work.
In order to keep the nursing workforce healthy, hospitals must make sure that veterans are adequately compensated. They should also increase the pay of experienced nurses.
By providing a higher wage, hospitals can help keep veteran nurses and lessen the stress that they endure. This is especially important for nursing staff.
With the rising cost of health care, more money is needed for nurse salaries. But the most important thing is to provide high-quality care for all.
The strikes in Chicago have hit school nurse morale. School nurses are stretched thin and desperate to change their working conditions.
Some of them have gone on strike for 5 days in a row to force COVID improvements. However, the strikers say the nurses are exhausted and deserve a day off to recuperate.
If this continues, many nurses will be leaving Chicago public schools. The fight for the CTU is a necessary step in addressing this problem.